Welcome everybody to Disruptive Conversations. Here we are. It's a sunny Thursday morning. The leaves are starting to change. We're moving into our next season. And I already see Jessica here, and she has joined. I see Surrey Hill. I see a request to come on. We're moving right along. Jessica, I'm going to go live. Some new people have joined today. Welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations. And this show is dedicated to hearing the great stories about women. Jessica, hi, so great to see you.
You.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the show, myself and you, and then we're rolling into our conversation. So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations with thought leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, authors, in which we deep dive into the experiences these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to have achieved the professional and personal success they have created up to this point in time. I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. Here's the good news. Positive change can happen at any point in time. You're never too late, and you can start today. In order to create positive change, we need to disrupt. We need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, a habit, a behavior in order to create our 10.0 lives. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And today, to give us additional insight and to help us on that journey, I am delighted to meet and welcome Jessica Elefante. Do I have the, okay.
You do. You do very well.
Did it. And so here's a bit of Jessica's bio. She's the author of, wait till you hear this book title, Raising Hell, Living Well, Freedom from Influence in a World Where Everyone Wants Something from You. And she's also a founding member and co-chapter leader of MAMA, Mothers Against Media Addiction, something that we can all relate to on so many different levels. So Jessica, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hi, how are you today?
I'm so good. And I know I read up and that you were a branding expert, and I got one of the shortest bios ever. And I really I thought that was such a statement of how you wanted to present yourself and what you wanted to say about yourself.
No
So is there
fluff.
anything, pardon me?
No more fluff, no more buzzwords.
Oh,
It's just, that's it.
you really communicated that in your bio. So truth in advertising, so to speak, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you saw that.
Absolutely. We didn't miss it. So is there something well, we're going to talk about this more, but we're going to jump right in, because obviously there's a lot that's happened, a lot of pivots that you've had in your life. So Jessica, what is it that you needed to disrupt inside yourself to have the professional and personal success you have up to this point in time?
I think if we're talking about specifically my most recent success and the thing that I think is the most successful is the book. I had to kind of, I guess, disrupt what I thought success was, and why it was defined certain ways and how I defined it, and how to get there. There's always this tried and true path that we've been sold since we were kids of arriving at a certain place. You have to, check every box and do every next thing on a to-do list, and that there's this golden carrot at the very end that all happiness will be achieved when you get there. And I think that that's something that I've been playing with probably since I was a kid, and I write about that in my book a little bit, of like, why does it have to be this way, and who says that that equals success, and why should I know now? And so in the book, I talk about the two times where I've had that sort of traditional success in my marketing career, where I was, making really great money and I was getting awards and I would be giving keynote talks, flying all over the country, but I was really wholly unhappy and unwell, physically from all of that overwork and, receiving all the accolades, but not actually reaping the benefits of success on my own personal side. And then secondarily with my media brand Folk Rebellion that I started after that big aha moment that I was unwell from my technology. I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but I recreated the same problem all over again, but this time it was mine. I could have created Folk Rebellion to be anything I wanted it to be. And it was through this altruistic mission that the way we were using technology, I felt wasn't the best way. And I could help people through my marketing and branding and communications understand that, except I didn't really do the work and I did it all over again, flying all over the country, receiving all these awards, people recognizing, what it was and they wanted it. And I burnt out once again. And so the true success for me was launching my book into the world, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. Children are difficult, but actually becoming a published author is really quite difficult. But I did it my way. And you are my first Instagram Live I've ever done because I am kind of not really on social media. And it was a boundary that I had set. And today's the 1 year anniversary of the book. And it felt like, okay, I have protected myself. I'm really proud of the work that I put out there. I had fun promoting the book. And this felt like a really great way to come back to it. So long answer to, I think I've been most disruptive in this final success because I really truly have done it my way, even to the point of how I show up here being holistically me and not feeling like I have to present something else.
Well, I'm glad and thrilled that you are here today representing yourself in a way that feels authentic and in alignment with your internal self. And that's really important. In addition to which, I also want to thank you for trusting that this could be a good experience and that we've got you.
For sure. Well, and it's one of my rules is that it was through our mutual friend and colleague in Lucinda. And I think some of the best connections that happen online are through other people. And as quickly as possible, I try and take them offline. So after this, I'll probably ask you for coffee.
I love that. And that's how I roll as well. That this isn't a one and done conversation, that with people who have, have welcome to New York. This is what it's like. So you get the sirens and I get the gardeners with the lawnmowers. So what you did was you took your basic way of doing things, right? Which is what you started with your first career. Maybe you had a career before that, but in your marketing career. And then you shifted what I do, like how I do what I do, into this next iteration and this next, commitment. And don't you think that's just enormously interesting? I do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people will say, younger people who are just starting out, like, I'm not on the right path, or how do I get on that path, or and I think, art is art, everything is art, everything is writing, everything informs something. So you couldn't predict exactly that this would be the book or this would be where I ended up, but you take those things, those skill sets, those learnings, and maybe they inspire a pivot, or maybe they give you the skills for that next iteration. And so I always try and tell people, don't stress about it. It's not that straight arrow. You just don't know. A skill set that you develop here could be wholly useful in another fashion in something else you want to do.
That's very true, and that we can't know. And I've had so many conversations, both in my work, in my private practice, and also just with friends, that we can't know what's going to be ahead of us.
No.
And and as much as we may want to map things out and have a plan, things change all the time. Yes. We've had this meeting time, you have a siren going on behind you. I mean, no matter what we do, and we put ourselves out there, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen the way that we envision it. and we are in a learning curve. And so what got you to shift from marketing to, and then through some other paths to mama?
Yeah. So, um, like I said, I was, had this really wonderful, marketing and branding career. I was at, I guess, the perfect time, or some would say now, the most awful time to become one of the key people that help usher forward what we see today in social media and brands and corporations. I fell face first into a very technologically based career through my branding, only because these corporations were realizing they could no longer ignore Facebook. And back then we had Vine, and I was actually helping them set up their very first Facebook pages. I would do viral networking 101 classes at like local colleges for small businesses. So I just had the ability to, I've always been a writer. I've always been a storyteller. I went to art school in Europe to study photography and creative writing. And when the internet back then, to me, it was a playground. It was fun. I could communicate and build these communities. And I also had this background in branding and marketing, so I could sit with the C-suite and say, you can't ignore this anymore, and here's why, and here's why you need to put budgets towards it. Now, today, it's amazing to me that they have giant agencies handling just like a single, Facebook channel for one brand. I was handling all digital channels for multiple brands at once. And so, today, some people have called me kind of like a canary in the coal mine of what happens when you're an early adopter and an overuser without any sort of boundaries. And I became really, I guess, just like unwell from this technology, but I didn't know what that was. Most of it was memory loss, malaise, brain fog, this feeling of disassociation. I was very young. I was in my early 30s. I was totally healthy. There was no reason that I should have had any of these things. And I kept going to all these different doctors, and no one could figure out what it was. And I'm kind of blowing through this because it's a long story, but I ended up on a vacation where my then husband said, you can't, work the whole time you're here. You can't be on your devices, and took them all away. Today, they call it a digital detox or an intervention. But I woke up 8 days later, which was so significant to me because the average American vacation is much less than that. And it was like someone turned my brain back on. It was like a flip of the switch. And so that started me down this rabbit hole of reading about all of this science and research, which was lacking back then. This was 2012, of what happened to my brain. Like, what is this, And I'm a creative, and I'm very analog, and I get paid to think. And what does my life look like if I can't do that? And so I started to, try and think about setting some boundaries back at my corporate sort of consulting jobs, and realized very quickly that people weren't there yet and they didn't want to hear it. And so I left and I started Folk Rebellion, which was a crusading sort of media brand mission that was to wake people up to the way we were using technology might not be the healthiest for us. And we could hack our way out of it, and we could set boundaries and balance and have mindfulness. And today I say I've been radicalized because I don't believe that anymore. I actually think we can't have a healthy relationship with it until it's designed that way, which has led me to my book and to my work with Mama, which is really advocating for people to understand how these corporations and these tech companies operate, how they manipulate our wiring and our behaviors for profit, and then how you can actually, through community and in real life connections and, kind of like activate and push back and make change. And so Mothers Against Media Addiction is a totally grassroots parent-led movement founded by Julie Scelfo. I saw her speak and I ran backstage and I was like, this is how it changes. I will do whatever it is you need. I want to be a part of this. I've been speaking in the tech circles. I've been speaking in the, academic sort of circles and the science, but like everyone's just staying in their silos. And so I saw Mama as this umbrella where the everyday person felt like they could have a say in what our future holds. And so while I was very, I don't know, despondent for many years, because I was one of the only people in the room having these conversations. Today, there's thousands, and I feel really hopeful for the first time in a long time.
So what what is it that you could share with us about your concerns about the social media and what, can you share what your big concern is or an experience that you've had to help us understand
Yeah.
better?
So I had a whole life before I even got a cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 20. I didn't have a computer growing up. My parents got one after I moved out. It was a family computer. So I had had decades to develop who I was as a person, how I thought about the world, my experiences, social skills, but also my brain was basically fully formed. And then all of this stuff was introduced to me, and what happened was, I now realize, was a rewiring of my brain. And so the way like these companies have gotten really smart, they make money through attention right now, because the more attention you pay, the more they can run advertising or collect data on you, and that's highly lucrative. So the goal is to have you keep as much attention as possible, and so they make these changes. So the first major one that most people would have recognized was the scrolling feed. We used to be able to go and find our friends and see exactly, in timeline, chronological order of what was happening, and we get to see what we wanted and get back off. Well, they created this endless feed so that you feel not of this present time, and also you have to keep looking if you feel like you've missed something. If you missed a friend who went on vacation, you have to keep going. And now today it's not even your friends, it's the explore tab, and everything's interjected. And so it rewires your brain, one, to crave it, so you can't put it down. And then from that, you no longer, it's shortening your ability to focus, right? So you're trained to only be able to absorb smaller and smaller bits of content, so that when you go to, so people will say, I have a hard time reading, I have a hard time focusing on a movie. The younger generation can't get through 30-minute sitcom. So it's twofold there. But then the third piece of it is what we're consuming. It's the actual content itself. And because the algorithm these tech companies want more people engaged and more people to have attention as long as humanly possible, they are prioritizing the things that often get shared or have high engagement. And what that is things that are salacious, untrue, violent, sexual, exploitative. So they're not prioritizing the really smart content, or the really peaceful content, or the really long and slow content, or the really thoughtful content. They are prioritizing the things that I believe are the worst of what we are as humans. And the more that you take that in, whether just by default because it's there and you can't get past it to get to your friend, right? Because you can't find your friend again that you want to see their vacation pictures, you become desensitized to these things that you're seeing. Your baseline of what is normal to you has now ratcheted up, right? And we've seen this over the past 10, 15 years in everything, I think. And the thing that motivates me the most is going back to, I had 22 years without any of this, and I became addicted. I hate technology, and I became addicted. I lost my cognition, my memory, my focus, my creativity. I would turn to it before I would turn to my family, my friends. And then, if I hadn't figured out what was going on, I say would have been radicalized by the type of content because it just pushes you further and further. But because of my background in marketing, advertising, and technology, I was able to see what was happening. And so I stopped. But the reason I do what I do now is my kids. Like he was 2 at the time, my oldest son. I now have another 2-year-old, which is crazy. And we know better. So we do better, and it should be better for him. But in fact, over the past decade, these companies have gotten really smart and have embedded themselves in the very foundation of childhood. And so, yeah, I feel like we're like the keepers of before and after. Like we are the last generation to know. And so when I meet with activists who are in their 20s and they're thinking, I don't know what their experience is like because they've grown up with it and known no different. Of course, I don't. And they're wanting to make, these small changes. I feel very strongly that I helped push this out there, and it's not okay, and it doesn't have to be this way. And I actually want to culturally shift and correct it. And it's a big swing and it's a big ask. And people used to say it was crazy, but now I actually start to see it. And I don't know what the next 5 or 10 years look like, regulation, people coming in, but I see amazing changes in Europe. I see amazing changes in our community alone. And I'm hopeful.
Hope is very important, and grounded hope.
Yes.
Taking hope, finding optimism within ourselves. And optimism isn't when things are all going well, Jessica. Optimism is when you can't at the moment perhaps see a path, but you still hold on to your hopefulness
Yes.
and your belief, because belief has a role. There's different kinds of belief, but your belief that it can be better and that I can do something
Mm-hmm.
to help move that along. Not
Not
everything.
everything. I've learned that.
Well, that's part of what I'm writing about. And we'll talk about my book, and which is currently called Baby Book X, because it is book without title, but great, very directed, but needs a name.
It'll
Uh,
come.
that there's this other piece of it, of with women in particular, where there's this mythology of infinite capacity,
Yes.
and that of course we should be able to yet take something else on, and that if we're not doing that, it means that we're not enough, we're inadequate. Why can't I be like so and so, who looks like, after a day that, I don't know, just for the sake of painting a picture here,
Mm-hmm.
then goes back and checks the temperature of her sourdough starter to make sure it's perfect, to be able to then bake the bread.
Yes.
Not that there's anything, it's not about adding judgment here, but it's about the idea that we have capacity.
Yes, we do. But not, but like, so that that's when you asked earlier, like, I am so proud of the way that I have protected myself with this book, right? Could I have sold more books? Probably. Could I have gone on a few more book tour stops? Sure. Could I have done endless Zooms? Yes. But I knew that there was no way in the world that this book was successful and I felt horrible. That wouldn't be like, I had to walk the walk on this one. And for me, it was protecting my spirit, my energy, my mental health, my family. And here's the thing, I worked my tail off. It's exhausting, but I knew, because of the two times before, like, to stop. I needed to listen to my body. I had to have the intuition. And there are things I canceled. There are people that I said no to. No is a complete sentence. And I'm proud of that. And I see that's actually something that the younger generation does really well. Is I get even a lot of no's back from them. And, I think I came of my career during the girl boss generation. And we had to, do everything we could and, have all the capacity, endless capacity, to be able to sit in the room that we were not invited into and and keep our spot there. And it's so quick and easy to forget about or to make fun of. But the reality was that, I was still one of the women in a room filled with men. And so, yes, it was constant pushing the boulder uphill. And today, I just say no.
Well, there's a no. In your no, there's also the yes.
Of course.
And the importance of the yes, which is we get to really rethink and decide and claim and enact our definitions, our personal definitions of success, and that we don't have to, we're not, we you know, there isn't a doling of how many ideas of success you may have. You may have one idea of success in your 20s that may shift as life moves on.
Totally.
You can go back, you can redo, you can rethink and recalibrate yourself.
Totally. Yeah. And by saying no to things, right? So, with this book, I only was able to write it because I said no to every brand that wanted to hire me for a year. And I knew creatively I couldn't put my energy there. I had to put my energy here. And so it was only in saying no that I finally got the yes from a publisher, right? So I just had to. Now, financially that was tough, but like you have to sacrifice some things to get the bigger yes, I guess.
So if you wanted to give, I'm thrilled to have our communities here. And I know that you're in a community that's very thoughtful about social media. I hope that they have taken this opportunity to see this is a moment of social media for good, and that we get a chance to talk here together, and that other people have the opportunity and they get entree into your thinking, your experience, and how that can be of help and be a thoughtful space for them to dwell in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of ways that I have found some of my favorite people, like Nikki, who's there right now from Strolling to Death, because of our common, things that we have in common, things that we like. And I have made some of my best friends actually through Instagram. So it's not all bad, right? It can be both. You can do great work on here and share really important information, but you just always have to know where this stuff is coming from. And so if you know that the goal is to always keep you on here, be really super intentional in how you're utilizing it. So, simple things, if you have younger people in your life or you're just starting out, you want to create versus consume other people's content. You want to connect, take it offline as quickly as you can. Use it as, more of like a tool as opposed to really a community, right? So if all of your communication is happening just here and not elsewhere in the world, that becomes really unhealthy over a long time. But think of it more like an old school landline. Like you reach out to someone, you DM them, you talk to them, and figure out how can you turn this into something more positive in the future. Because yeah, the way that it operates, like it would like me to be on here all the time, and I'm just not going to. But I'm older, I've built a career, I'm able to say and do that, and I understand that there's people that are just starting out. So I think, what I tried to do with my book was pull back the curtain on all of this a little bit, because I think just by understanding that this is happening and this is how it's built, allows you a much better chance than I think we had, 10, 15 years ago, of creating stuff thoughtfully, creating community thoughtfully, content thoughtfully, and using it in a way that is really, really intentional until regulation happens, which I am trying for, Nikki is trying for, to make it so that this stuff is actually healthy to use and fun and a safe place to play and connect.
And this can be a place of meeting and greeting, getting information. I hear everything that you're saying. And also there's the component, I actually learned this one, of IRL.
Yeah.
In real life. And one of the joys, and this has happened to me many times, is meeting people and connecting initially on Instagram, on some form of social media, on a small screen, and then we get to be in a room together.
Nothing better.
And we get to have coffee together and chat together. And so it's how do we call, and being very thoughtful and intentional and inquisitive of how we call the best of what we can get.
Yes.
Understand that our pull may be to get sucked in, kind of like Vegas,
Yeah.
where it's never day or night there. It's just always
Yes.
go. It's like being, it's like being in Vegas in certain way.
And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
No,
And that's people to
and
know.
And I just want to just add one more comment before we wrap, which is that that for parents, and I and I think that this is so important, that it's so important that you can't just expect your kids to just get off.
No,
That's
yeah,
not realistic.
we can't,
No,
you know.
it's not realistic.
That,
And that's where parenting comes in. Even though they're going to miss something, they're going to miss this, they're going to miss that. And that to have this expectation that they should just be able to do it.
no, and then when they
It's not
the,
true.
the shame cycle, right? Well, I should be able to get off this. I don't know why I can't. And, when you lay the responsibility at their feet, it's creating even more problems, right? So that's been some of the work that I've been doing with Mama, is just giving permission to every parent in the room. You were told that this was the world and it was good for the kids. And now you're seeing firsthand, or culture is sharing that it's not, and that's not your fault, and it's not the kid's fault. And like, just like a little permission, and everybody just takes this big, huge, deep breath. And then knowing that, it's like, oh, okay, we're all on the same team here, and we have somebody else that we can direct this energy at. And yeah, I want the kids to be okay. It's kind of why I keep doing all this.
Fantastic. And for us to be okay as well, in being able to guide, get information out, and be helpful and impactful in doing that, rather than having kids sneaking phones and putting it underneath their pillows and like pulling it out at night. So,
And if
so
on another person to talk to about that, Scrolling to Death Nikki, who's here, is doing some of the greatest work that I have seen, utilizing this platform exactly to get information out there, to arm parents with understanding what's happening, but also tools. Yeah, it's incredible. So she's a perfect example of someone who's using this really, really well. So you should have her on.
I will. A conversation will be had.
Great.
And so thank you so very much. And what is your next disruption?
Well, I can't announce it yet, but I have something coming. Today's the 1 year anniversary of my book, and I am reminded throughout the whole year that the best parts of it were when I was gathering with people who like to think, like to act, and like to do things in real life. And so I love the literary community and the sort of responsible tech community, but I really, really, really believe in gathering in person. And so something's coming, but I can't say. And I'm also working on my second book, like a crazy person, still around the technological impacts on society, but in a very different way. Yeah.
So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. I'm delighted to meet you. And I can't wait for us to continue our conversation IRL. And for
Coffee.
everyone tuning in, thanks so much for joining us today on Disruptive Conversations with this extraordinary disruptor with us today in the best possible way, disruption for good. And I'll be back here next week. See you then. And remember that positive change can happen at any point in time. See you next week. And I've saved a seat for you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.